The adorable Hydro Archon Furina just left her first ever limited banner, and it was an absolutely fantastic time pulling her and then testing her out in a vast array of teams. Her performance far exceeded my expectations, and any worries I had about her survivability or kit in general turned out to be almost entirely unfounded. She's broken in every sense of the word, and further increased the massive gap in collective power between Hydro and all the other elements. To honor Furina's triumphant debut, what better way is there to celebrate than to line up all her fellow Hydro characters in a single file, strip them down to their bare skin, objectify them, and rank them all in a subjective tier list. Exactly, nothing is better. Without further ado, let's begin. The first character to be featured on this tier list is the Hydro Traveler. They suck, that's all there is to it. As an on-field DPS designed with minimal supportive utility, they sure don't do much damage. D tier. Terrible. Look who we have here, an actual competent Hydro on-field DPS. Unlike the Hydro Traveler, Neuvillette actually does fantastic damage. He also has access to infinite AoE just by spinning. While he may have terrible Hydro application, Neuvillette's raw damage numbers are more than enough to make that irrelevant. He's pretty clearly balanced around maximizing talent damage to begin with anyway. Any attempt to force him in a Burgeon team is a fool's errand. Neuvillette also scales very well with early vertical investment. He has a great C1 and a fantastic signature and battle pass weapon. Neuvillette is undoubtedly one of the best DPS characters in the game, at both C0 with an F2P weapon and at C1 with a better one. Easy S tier regardless. Mona is sitting in quite an unfortunate spot at the moment. Her prior role as a freeze support is now contested by superior options, and she lacks utility in most other comps. That said, she is usable in certain vape teams, especially when they take advantage of her C1 and C4 buffs, and that makes her fine, I guess. C tier. Candace has one team and one team only, Nilou Bloom with Yao Yao. While that team is quite strong, Candace is by no means irreplaceable or even an outstanding option there. But she at least has one good team, and that makes her superior to the Traveler in my eyes. C tier. Childe also only has one team, which is International with Bennett, Xiangling, and Kazuha. You can certainly make him work in other teams, but they're all notably worse or don't really allow him to shine. Fortunately, International is among the better speedrunning teams in the game once you hit a certain investment threshold. Unfortunately, that investment threshold is quite high. First, you must have Xiangling's C3 and C4, as she will be missing 60% of her damage otherwise. You must also have a sufficient amount of resin invested into the team to meet its cumbersome energy requirements and to meet damage thresholds for its front-loaded damage profile to be meaningful. Childe is overall a terrible pick for most new players looking to clear Abyss for the first time, but is a great one for dedicated speedrun enjoyers seeking to push their limits. Overall, Childe deserves a spot in the A tier for his low floor, high ceiling performance. Nilou is the single most low primogem investment friendly character in the game. She works great with true F2P supports like DMC, Kale, and Barbara. And despite being primarily AoE focused, her teammate adaptability allows her to be decent in single target content too. Nilou also scales great with early vertical investment. Pulling Nahida, Key of Kajnasut, C2, maybe even Baiju paired with a constellated Hydro teammate can all go a long way. Nilou is simply very good at any investment level against any content. S tier. Kokomi is a Hydro healer that can be used from both on and off field. She has good AoE application with her Jellyfish, which proved useful in Nilou and Freeze teams for quite some time now. With Furina's release, on-field DPS Kokomi also became more of a legit thing, as she can deal a respectable amount of damage while fulfilling all need for healing on that team. While Kokomi is not irreplaceable in any of her roles, nor is she necessarily the best option, she is always a good choice regardless. Overall, Kokomi's flexibility and honestly respectable damage output lands her in a spot in the A tier. Ayato is basically Kokomi if Kokomi is missing an arm. He applies AoE Hydro on and off field in the same way Kokomi does, and even has a wider AoE. Unfortunately, he also does a very comparable amount of damage to a clamset on-field Kokomi. And the problem is, he doesn't heal, which is a pretty important part of why Kokomi is quite good. I would think more highly of Ayato if he offered a significant offensive advantage to Kokomi in exchange for defensive utility, but unfortunately he doesn't. Overall, Kokomi with heel erectile dysfunction is still a fine character and deserves a spot in the B tier. I hate myself with that joke, by the way. Barbara doesn't generate energy, barely applies Hydro unless you on-field her, and does negative talent damage. However, she offers a massive team-wide heal, and that is extremely valuable for Nilou and Furina teams especially. Barbara single-handedly ensures that every new player has access to a fully functional Furina team from the very start, and that alone lands her in the B tier. The last 3 on the tier list are not only the 3 best Hydro characters, but also 3 of the best units in the game, period. Furina, Yelan, and XQ are all universal off-field Hydro damage dealers that offer great application, damage, and boundless team versatility. I made a full video on the comparison between these 3 monsters and who I think is superior. The quick summary is that Furina is slightly better than Yelan, who is slightly better than XQ. At this point in the game, there are so many options for healing that it is simply better role compression for the Hydro units in these slots to be more offensively geared and to provide additional defensive utility. But hey, that's just my opinion, and you are free to disagree. You'd be wrong, but I can respect your view. Yeah, that would be all. Remember to like, subscribe, and check out my Furina Yelan XQ comparison video. Feel free to beat me up in the comments, and I'll catch you next time, I guess.